I'm a real estate agent. I was in the US and I am here in New Zealand too. So I've taken the tests in both countries to know the difference in the legal processes of real estate in both countries. Mostly the differences are New Zealand law legislates a lot of things that is not legislated in the US. For example, in the US, I would hear about agents walking into homes they've never been in before and taking a few notes and leaving, and then calling the person later to tell them what they thought of the property and its value. You have to present a market analysis in writing. Here they call it a market appraisal. It has to have comparable sale data, and if it doesn't, you have to have a note in the appraisal describing why you don't have comparable sale data. In the US, there are laws about if you are a listing agent, if you are the agent representing the seller in a transaction, you can also represent the buyer. Now there are disclosures that you have to give to the buyer saying, listen, I'm representing the seller also, I have to keep information confidential, and then you say the same thing to the seller. That is called double dipping. That is an antitrust law violation in New Zealand. It is never allowed. There's never a situation, no matter what disclosures, where you are allowed to equally represent buyer and seller in the same transaction. One is a client, the other is a customer.
This is a heated towel rack. So you turn on the button and you see the cord, it heats up your towels. They are everywhere.
You might be thinking, I love central air conditioning. Not New Zealand. That is the closest thing that we have to central air conditioning here. It is a single unit.
It's room to room and sometimes not in any room at all.
Look at that weird house. It's actually, I don't even know. You got kind of the Spanish style. Kind of Victorian homes also. Look at that awesome modern style home. Here's this real interesting modern 3-story built into the hill. Their stucco exterior home. You know what that is. Now you probably picked up from all of those short videos that housing styles here are very eclectic. There's just a little bit of everything. There's Spanish Vista and Victorian and Mediterranean style, typical kind of stilted beachfront wood properties. One of the most amazing differences to me is in America, at least where I come from, houses are mostly very cookie cutter. You get a few house styles and you have 4,000 of them. And as you can imagine, certain style features like 3-paneled glass sliding doors and floor-to-ceiling windows are incredibly common because everything is beautiful around here.
So these homes are actually for sale in Napier right now, February 2020. And you'll see a lot of the features I'm talking about. Just a lot of windows, a lot of open doors, space that's just built around the outside. So this is a typical website here in New Zealand to look at homes in my area, and you'll notice none of them have prices. They have tender, deadline, auctions. All of them are no price marketing. Oh, except for this one.
So you might be asking yourself, I'm a purchaser, I want to buy a home. How do I know what homes are in my price range? I drive around and the signs don't have prices on them and the online advertisements don't have prices on them. And that's a great question. Oh, no, I don't have an answer. I mean, I don't know. There's not really a good answer. I guess you just have to do your own research and just show up.
Yeah, and that's intentional because in this market we are in New Zealand, in Napier, we don't know what the market value is. It could be anything. People are paying crazy amounts of money for homes. Now, that doesn't really help a purchaser, but it does help the seller, which is primarily the only person that the real estate agent cares about.
The next one, and for me one of the hardest ones, is that here in Napier and in most of New Zealand, there is no such thing as an MLS, a multi-listing service. So in the Evansville-Newburgh market, if I am working with a buyer and someone with a different agency is working with the seller, I bring the buyer through, and if they're the right fit and they make the best offer, their offer is accepted and I work with the other agent, we get things sold. Here, that is absolutely not the case. I am only allowed to sell listings with my own agency. Just like Harcourt's behind me, they're normally only allowed to sell listings with their agencies. So if you are a purchaser and you're looking for a home, you find one with Harcourts, you find one with Baileys, and one with Tremaines. You have to go to each of those agents that are listing the property to have a chance at making an offer at it. I can't help you. The other agencies are the enemy, and only the good agents work for the company that you work for. It's one of the other big agencies. This is Tremaines, and all of them fight for beachfront offices. More often than not, the police in Napier are actually called to intervene with fights that break out in the streets between agents, different agencies. They see each other, or maybe a comment's made about the other's company, and by the rule of honor, they have to fight. The number one thing that is different between the US and New Zealand real estate, for me, is that New Zealand has no buyer representation. So in the US, if you are a purchaser or you're thinking about buying a home, you find an agent, you interview the agent, and the agent works for you on your behalf and shows you homes, emails you information about the real estate market, negotiate an offer on that home, everything having to do with buying the home. But here that doesn't exist. If you are a buyer, you work with the agent that has the listing, the seller's agent, and just hope that they treat you well and do all of your own research and all your own diligence. If you are unfortunately a purchaser in New Zealand, I've got 6 tips that should help you right along.
Number 1, you need a bank approval letter showing that they will loan you whatever you want and hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank. Or you need millions of dollars in your bank. That way you can just pay cash outright, because the average sale price here in Napier is $585,000.
Number 2, you need a complete working understanding of New Zealand real estate law and how settlement happens. You do all of your own diligence, all of your own research. Make sure you've gotten all the building reports together, any council records that you needed, like a limb, anything that has anything to do with the property, get it all together, know everything that's going on that could go wrong with the property, that is wrong with the property. Number 3, this is an important one. You need to be able to not care about anything negative on any of the reports I just told you about. If you do care, you're out, because you're competing against 20 other people and none of them are going to care. Number 4, you need to have a complete disregard for the actual value of that property. So, similar to number 2 about buyer due diligence, completely up to you as the purchaser to determine what you think the house is worth, what you think the listing price should have been. Because the real value of an item is what someone else is willing to pay over you for it. So, you can do research and find comparable sales and get a registered evaluation if you want. It doesn't matter. Agents certainly aren't going to help you. I can't help you. So you're just going to have to make your best guess. When you make your best guess, add $50,000 to $100,000 on top of that, and you might get an accepted offer. Number 5. Have absolutely no concern for the future value of your property. Don't do any research into what the market's going to do in a year or two. It doesn't matter what you think. Even if you overpaid for it, just be happy that you got it at all. And finally, number 6, you need to be very comfortable with never hearing from your real estate agent again after the sale. Now, not really your real estate agent, of course. It's actually the vendor, the seller's real estate agent. They were just kind of helping you. You're their customer, not their client. But statistically, this is also true of the US, by the way, the number 1 complaint that consumers and clients have about real estate agents is that the agents stop talking to them after the sale is done. So agents are more concerned about the sale than about you. Imagine that. That is more true here.